What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Sunday edition of Lambdas Live. I'm your host, Hernan, here with my co host, Fernando. What's going on, Fernando?
I am doing good, and I apologize to all our viewers in advance. I'm a little bit under the weather today, so if I sound a little bit nasally, things like that, I apologize in advance. But I'm here today
Oh, we
because I
hope you
wanted
feel
to make
better.
sure. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, Diego was also feeling a little bit under the weather, so he couldn't make it today. But we got a pretty cool episode today. I'm actually excited because we have a pretty good lineup. It's so much so that I had to break out the, the pen and paper, man. It was a long week. I'm tired today. Went to sleep around 2 o'clock,
hmm
keeping up with some of the highlights and watching the UFC fight last night. And but yeah, man, we have a lot to talk about today. I mean, a lot happened this weekend. If you are a jiu-jitsu and MMA fanatic, a lot of good stuff happened, and then just a lot of good stuff's been happening during the week. I mean, some news and stuff like that. It's been awesome. I mean, where to begin? So it's crazy. But
Let's
so
get started.
today, let's get started, man. So the first thing on our list that we're going to talk about before anything is the news that's been going around in the community regarding Donis, right?
hmm
So he apparently um, got himself in a little bit of trouble. I think maybe about a week ago or something like that. Was at an event or something, or I don't know,
hmm
some type of social
I think a nightclub, maybe.
gathering, nightclub, whatever. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, from what you can see, he got himself put in a rear naked choke on the floor, and then I guess got arrested. I guess that's how the story went.
hmm
But it's funny because he's always trying to be at the center of things, and he finally got his opportunity, kind of being in this
The
wrong side. But yeah,
the
man, like
notoriety.
what can we take away from this? So there's a couple things that I kind of saw when you shared that with me. But my first response was, man, how come he didn't, show his jujitsu black belt skills? But then I was like, wait a minute, I think that was for the best, because at least him. I don't know, if he was acting up. I'm not sure. I'm not really too familiar with what actually happened. But I think for me, the greatest takeaway in that was that he didn't really try to resist. He kind of
hmm
just let himself kind of get have the person apply that choke there. I think the security guard put a rear naked choke on him to kind of control him,
hmm
turn him on his back, and they put him in cuffs. Um, I think that was, for me, like, probably a good thing, because at least it doesn't taint, jujitsu, right? I mean,
Yeah.
kind of sucks that you would have to find someone who's as good. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, whether people like him or not, he is pretty good, man. He's
hmm
won, I think, the worlds at Brown. He's competed in Bellator. Love him or hate him, he was with Conor McGregor in his corner, training jiu-jitsu, his jiu-jitsu coach. But at the end of the day,
Marcel
yeah,
Garcia, black belt as well.
Marcelo Garcia, black belt. And even though there was some, breakup or
Beast
whatever, but at
there.
the end of the day,
hmm
he's got skills. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is the fact that he did at the end to get, kind of didn't resist. He was just like, all right, it is what it is. And I think that showed, like, another part of, of I guess, jiu-jitsu mindset, kind of realizing, your skill set. He could have, like, tried to turn it on, right? I think,
hmm
but if I'm not mistaken, I think I also read that he had a leg injury, maybe
Yeah.
limited his movement, but still, at the end of the day. So yeah, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah. To go to add to what you say, yeah, I think he's been dealing with like a knee issue for like 2 years now, and that's why he only had. I think he's had two Bellator fights. He hasn't
Hmm.
fought since I believe 2019 or 2018, something to that effect. So the story goes, what's going around, what's making the rounds is that apparently he didn't have ID, and the security. He was like Googling himself, to show this is who I am, that type
Oh
of
snap!
thing. Yeah, the security guard was like, I have no idea who you are. That upset him, and then the whole thing went down.
Wow.
My my thoughts is, it's unfortunate um, when ego, I guess you get a little bit of money, a little bit of notoriety, it kind of gets to your head.
Mm.
Um, you know, I mean, he's a troll. Like he goes back and forth with like different people. Like And it's just sad because the guy is talented. It's just that I really think that he needs somebody to like I guess rein him in a little bit like that. I'm not sure his background. I'm not sure like um like family wise like how it was like back then. But I really think that he needs somebody to kind of like take him under his wing, and you know, I guess point him towards a different path because this path that it's like leading to self destruct, and I think he's
Mm,
trying really hard to emulate that Conor McGregor lifestyle. But I mean, look at is catching to McGregor,
right.
So I really think that for his sake that he has a real friend that will be like, hey man, this is not the right way to go.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. You kind of reap what you sow, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's I think it's flashy. It's flashy for the lights, to get attention, to potentially, put yourself in a position to get a fight or whatever, line up yourself for a big payday. But at the end of the day, honestly, I think, you being a humble, respectful martial artist, I think goes a longer way
Mhm.
than kind of that 5 minute or 15 minutes of fame. I mean, it sucks that the 15 minutes of fame that you got right now is you getting choked out because you
Yeah.
couldn't, you didn't have ID. That's great. I didn't even know the background of that, but yeah, man. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm glad that he didn't really resist. It seemed like he kind of just went on his merry way. But yeah, yeah, I do value the advice that you're giving him, man. And you know, he is young. He still seems fairly young, relative, I guess, to us. But hopefully he'll set hopefully sets him on a better path, or maybe not. But who knows? By the end of the day, um, hopefully things do change out for him. But all right, man. Let's
Absolutely.
move on to the next one, man. So, fight to win championship this weekend. I had to have both, my cell phone, and I was watching the UFC on the big screen, and kind of going back and forth. Um, and I was watching the matches on and off. It started pretty early, so I got to watch some of the highlights in the beginning, and then once I got home, started watching some of the fights. Most of the semis. But then, man, let's talk about a little bit of fight to win, and some of the most interesting matches. I mean, there was a lot of pretty good fights, a lot of
Absolutely.
well-known jiu-jitsu practitioners, competitors. I mean, I think a who's who of jiu-jitsu competitors were on these cards. And but there were some upsets, right? There were some
Yep.
crazy matches where you're like, wow, I did not expect that to happen. Let's start off where, so who was the first wow that didn't happen? That didn't just
Okay.
happen.
So I was online actually because I always go to Hershey Park. That's like a running joke now with the podcast. So I was actually on a long line waiting for a ride, and it was during Gabriel Sousa versus Mikey Musumeci, and you know the first it was a very competitive match. I mean, Mikey Musumeci's guard retention is. I mean, I was thinking to myself like, wow,
Beast.
like it's second to none. I mean, Gabriel Sousa was trying everything, pressure pass, everything, he just couldn't get past him.
Right.
And if finally he was able to, he actually passed him twice
Mm.
towards the end of the match, because I was like, okay, I thought, like if it was a ref decision or whatever, I thought they probably would favor Mikey Musumeci because I mean he could pass the guard. Then he passed it twice towards the end. I'm like, oh, like Gabriel Sousa is going to win. And then when he finished him with a north south choke, I like screamed, oh, like I know everybody started
On the
looking at me in
line.
the line. Yeah, but I
Make it
just couldn't
crazy.
believe. Yeah, it was just a great match, and I got to shout out my professor, Coach Jay Ferrari, because he shows us that choke a lot. I think that's one of his favorite submissions, actually, and
The
just to
north
see
south.
that, yeah, the north south choke, and just to see that, I'm like, wow, I'm probably gonna show him for some brownie points later. Like,
Yeah.
oh look, you taught us that earlier this week, so.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was an exciting fight. I had Mikey winning the whole thing in that category,
Hmm.
in the lightweight division. And I mean, honestly, like, he's been on a tear, both in the gi and the no gi. He's transitioning into the no gi.
Hmm.
He's won his last couple, pro fights, and yeah, like I thought that, what, there's nobody that's going to be able to stop him, and for him to lose by submission, that was
Yeah.
mind blowing. and especially a north south choke in nogi. I mean, for me, that's just like wow, that's crazy.
Mhm.
Because number one, like you said, he had to pass his guard, which is like impenetrable, and then to get to that position, particularly, usually with nogi, you see a lot more of a rear naked choke finish, or even some arm bars, but a lot of leg locks lately. But a
Mhm.
north south is something that you rarely see, and to see that, especially on a practitioner, a competitor, high level competitor like
High
Mikey,
level.
I was like, wow. So that was definitely one for the records. I mean, that was super exciting. But shout out to Gabriel who moved on to meet the next mind blowing guy, which is uh,
Colabate.
Abate, Cole Abate. Wow. I'm like, it's it's so crazy to be thinking about this dude because number one, he's only 16 years old. 16, and he's still a juvenile blue belt. I
Blue
mean, that's not
belt.
even consider. He's not even. He can't even compete in the adult blue belt division. He's still in the juvenile division. So he's a 16-year-old competing against seasoned black belts, and he goes up against Gio Martinez in the first round.
ADCC veteran Gio Martinez.
ADCC veteran, high level black belt, 10th planet black belt. I mean, this guy himself is a phenom, getting his black belt super fast. Amazing, amazing competitor. And this kid, man, I saw the highlights. Boy, he dominated. He dominated. He's had Geo in really, really bad positions, a lot of leg entanglements, threatened the heel hooks significantly. Took his back
Took
at
his
one
back.
point,
Hmm.
took his back, and he got the decision at the end. Right, he couldn't put him away,
Yeah.
but he got the decision at the end, but in a dominant fashion with on somebody who was, honestly,
But-
he fought Mikey Musamichi in a previous fight to win, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah. Hmm.
That went to was that a submission? That was a submission, right? I think he got him in a submission, right?
Did it? No, I think it was a decision. I mean,
Decision.
yeah, but the same thing. It was just Mikey Musumeci
Mikey
just
just
like
down.
yeah, just
Yeah,
had him in the leg entanglements, and it was just kind of I would say one sided because it's like kind of disrespectful, but like it was clear who was going to win
right.
that
But I
decision.
know that Gio had a really nasty takedown at the beginning. It kind of brought it to
Hmm.
the ground, and that's when Mikey was like, "All right, just open up a little bit." But for some reason, oh, and what do you think? But I think this fight was a lot more action packed, a lot more movement, a
Yeah,
lot more leg attacks from a 16-year-old competitor who was like amazing.
yeah. If I could
Yeah,
jump in real quick, because I was a little when the match first started, like
mhm.
Cole Abate started like a house on fire, and I was kind of scared that he was gonna like gas out because I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
the kid ain't
he's
guessing
still
out.
young. Well, yeah, that is true. But it's like, putting a lot of like energy in the beginning where it's like a 15-minute match. Like you kind of want to pace yourself. But I mean, he
Yeah,
was able
yeah,
to maintain that pace for 15 minutes. It was
yeah. I
impressive to
mean,
watch.
man, he's a 16-year-old kid. He's probably got endless energy, But yeah, man, that was an amazing, amazing fight. And then so now you got these two meeting each other in the semis, right? Souza versus Abate in the semis, and that was a really good one. I actually got to watch that fight. Didn't catch the highlights. I watched that back and forth, and that was a very very interesting fight. I mean, Abate has a really great guard, man. He kept on recovering. Did you get to watch that one, or you didn't get to
No, I
watch it?
missed that one.
Well,
Yeah. Hmm.
man, this one was really good. Cole was had a really amazing guard. Souza tried to play the same game he did with Musamenchi, trying to pass his guard. A lot of good guard attempts, very fast. But he very little success in trying to pass that guard, and in those transitions, Cole found ways to kind of put him in some deep water with some heel hooks, and some of them looked really tight. And honestly, really, I thought he was going to tap, but was able to get out of it, and then just kept on going back and forth for the 15 minutes. And at the end, I mean, and Souza also got him in a heel hook, but I personally don't think it was as deep. I mean, Cole did have to adjust, but it didn't look as bad as the ones he had him in. but at the end of the day, went to ref's decision, and they gave they gave it to Souza.
Okay.
But I personally don't think that he should have gotten the nod on that one. I mean, it was very close. I probably would have given it to Cole just for his defensiveness. I know that always usually the top player who's more offensive, who's attacking, is the one who really gets the nod. But in this particular case, I mean, none of the guard passes were really threatening at
Yeah.
all, at all. And as a matter of fact, usually when he was trying to pass, Cole was actually looking to attack, grabbing the shoulders, going for the back, and definitely, playing
Leg
a deep
entanglements
game
too.
and leg entanglements. Yeah, so he looked like he was the more dominant, even though he was playing guard. So
Mhm.
at the end of the day, but who cares, man? At the end of the day, 16 years old, comes out, beats a black belt, gives trouble to another high level world champion black belt, and he's only 16. Man, what's next for this kid?
The future is bright. But I also heard that he's right now. I guess he's at a level in his game where he wants like black belts. He's calling out black belts. So it should
Yeah,
be interesting, and I'll be watching from afar to see his development.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the beautiful thing about these kids, like Cole,
Gaval's another
they've been
one.
training. Yeah, like Mika Galval, they've been training since they were like little kids, right? Since they were like 4 or 5 years old. Even Roberto Jimenez,
The,
just take for
mhm.
example, they started to start jiu-jitsu when they're little kids, and that's why I advise, if you're a parent and you want to bring put your kids in any martial art, put them in jiu-jitsu and start them young. Start them 5 years old is really that sweet spot to get them started. So you got to put your kid in jiu-jitsu right away, Fernando, once he turns 5. But
Oh
think
yeah.
about it. I mean, he's 5 years old. Let's say Cole started maybe when he was 4 or 5, right? It was
Mhm.
young. He's 16, so he technically has been training for 11
12 years.
years, and
Yeah.
not just 11 years, but 11 years under some of the best coaches in the world, right? He's training currently with the Mendez brothers, who
Art of
are
jiu-jitsu.
the art of jiu-jitsu, who are probably some of the best coaches in the jiu-jitsu community now. I mean, these guys are phenomenal. They're multiple time world champions themselves. Got an amazing game, and now they're passing that on to the next line of young and up and coming competitors. Their legacy, they're cementing their legacy in that sense. But yeah, so he's been training for 11 years. I mean, now you think about someone like myself who's been training 12 years at a later stage in my life. I mean, now he's 16. I got, and he's trained 11 plus years. I've trained, 12 years. Technically, we've received the same, training duration, right? We've been in that journey for that long. Obviously, he's gotten it at a higher level, so no doubt he's going to be beating black belts. I mean, he's getting into his into his manhood, right, in his adulthood, right. He's a teenager, but like entering those stages where you start developing,
Mhm.
having your growth spurts, and those guys are, they're since they're working out from the begin from early stages,
Yeah.
developing their muscle structure sooner. I mean, Cole is a pretty big kid.
It's
He's a
big. Yeah.
pretty big kid. So yeah, man, you got these guys coming up, and there's no doubt that he has to compete against higher level people, because there's nobody in his division at his age that's going to give him any trouble. So he has to test himself, just like the Rutolo
Rotolo brothers.
brothers.
Hmm.
Yeah, like there's nobody that that's going to be able to stop them, and it's only 16 years old. So imagine when he's in his 20s, um, at a black belt stage, and there's no doubt that these guys are going to be dominating. All right, so who do we got next, man? So we spoke about Geo's. Well, we spoke about Cole, which was definitely amazing. Dude's phenomenal. We got we talked about the Mikey Musamichi upset. The next one I want to talk about, and I'm not sure if you know so much about this kid, um, Jacob Couch. Have you heard of him? The
Daisy
Daisy
Fresh.
Fresh, Daisy
Was he
Fresh,
the Hillbilly Hammer?
Hillbilly Hammer.
Yeah.
Wow, the Hillbilly Hammer. I mean, this guy's phenomenal too, bro. I mean, I've
Hmm.
watched all the episodes of Daisy Fresh. I can't wait till the next one comes out.
Hmm.
And this dude is an amazing personality. Got a crazy story, and he's making a name for himself. Competing in Fight to Win. on the biggest stage with some of the biggest names. He goes out there and in his first round, he fights one of my favorites, nuestro pana, friggin'
Ecuador.
Ecuadorian
Yeah,
Roberto Jimenez, man. Roberto Jimenez, who is an amazing, amazing jiu-jitsu competitor too. I mean, you're probably gonna hear me saying amazing a lot today, but this dude is just a phenomenal. I mean, since he's been a black belt, probably less, probably a year plus. He's been fighting like every weekend. I mean, I don't
it
think there's
seemed
a
like it.
card that I don't think there's a card that he's not on there. I mean, what do you think about Roberto, man?
Oh, he's a beast, man. He's like one of my favorite grapplers as well. I enjoy watching him. Not only because he's Ecuadorian, but I mean he's really good, And when I saw the brackets, when I was just filling it out, I was like, oh, Roberto Hernandez straight to the finals. I didn't even think anything of it. But then when I was on Instagram and it was like he got upset, I was like, wait, what? And but it was a leg attack, um, kind of like the same. Well, I mean, when Craig Jones beat it was like on the ground, but like it was still also like a heel hook as well.
Yeah, it was an
So
inside heel
uh,
hook.
yeah, so I'm kind of like wondering, like I mean, it can happen to anybody, but like I guess I got hopefully he'll go back to the lab and try to like work on trying to like defend that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think Roberto's game is really focused on leg entanglements. I don't think I've seen him really going for those type of
Mhm.
different type of moves or submissions. He's more like take your back, submit you with a rear naked choke type. So more of a, I guess, a traditional type of
Yeah.
approach. And yeah, man. And so when you're not really focused on that part of your game, obviously defending it, it also becomes a challenge when you're going against guys who are really only playing that game. And you see Jacob, he really goes for a lot of leg locks. And but I'm not saying that Roberto can't, but he just got caught in
Yeah.
that inside heel hook against a guy who's really good. I mean, he's up and coming too, trains hard as heck. I mean, you see these guys. I'm not sure if they're just doing it for the show, but I doubt it. These guys are
Hmm.
really good. I mean, and you got Pedigo, who's really producing a lot of great guys. I mean, and you see that from their victories as a team, right?
Yeah.
It's not just one person. It's not just Andrew Wiltsey. It's not just Jacob. They got a really solid team of up and coming jiu-jitsu players, jiu-jitsu competitors, and they're hitting the podium a lot, man.
Yeah.
You see them.
A
So
lot of
that
team
that
victories too.
right. So that goes to tell you that you got a lot of guys probably at the lower belts still, obviously, because they don't have a lot of higher belts. But these guys are training hard, man. They're hungry, and so you have someone like Jacob coming out, going against someone like Roberto. This is his opportunity to shine, and he capitalized on it, right? And
Hmm.
no, hats off to both of them, man. They just put on a great fight. I mean, it's something that as a
Absolutely.
jiu-jitsu fan, you love to see.
Hmm.
You love to see that. So I thought that was exciting, man.
Yeah, it was a
So
good. Yeah.
man, we got a whole list of things, man. All right, let's go to one of the other, I guess, controversial. I didn't really get to see this fight, but I saw the news as soon as it came out. I did see the press conference. Amanda Levy versus Gabby Garcia. The upset, big
Yeah, I didn't
upset,
see.
man.
I didn't see that match either, but I saw the press conference as well, and it was like heated. Amanda
Agreed.
Levy was upset that that for some reason that Gabby Garcia wasn't able to
Weigh in
didn't
or whatever.
weigh in. Yeah, it
Right.
was like some contract thing. But so I was thinking to myself, like, oh man, they fight in the first round. I was like, Gabby Garcia is gonna just smash her, and that's it, just make an
Yeah.
example out of her. Then when I saw that she lost, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I saw the press conference, the pre-show press conference, and I did see that the back and forth. Um, and yeah, there was the issue with the how come she's not weighing in, everybody else did, and Gabby was saying contractually she wasn't obligated to do so. Whatever. I'm not sure, why that matters so much if her weight or not, but I saw the picture on, I think, on Jiu-Jitsu Times with Levy had a rear naked choke, and the first thing I'm like, oh man, she submitted her. And I came to find out, she won by decision, but she had some really close attempts. And but yeah, man, I honestly, like, I think everybody's just worried about Garcia because she's just a big girl. I mean, she's huge. She got, I don't know. I didn't how God makes them so big, man. It's like, wow, she's a big girl, bro. And she's got muscles upon muscles.
Yeah.
And so she looks threatening, right? She's really threatening, but she has lost. She lost to Mackenzie Dern.
Yep.
She's lost, and in her last couple fights, I think, on the Jiu-Jitsu pro circuit,
Yeah.
she hasn't really been as successful.
Was it Aaron Harper that beat her? Oh, well,
No,
that's against Alpha Gades. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, okay. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think that people know how to beat Garcia. And at the end of the day, Garcia is she's great. She's high level. She's a world champ multiple times. But I mean, you got people who are coming up or whose skill level is rising too. And Levy showed how to get it done, man. Past the guard, using her speed, getting to her back, and really threatening positions, putting yourself in, putting Gabby in threatening position, and getting the nod. That was pretty cool too.
It was Nacheli de Jesus was the one that beat her.
Got it. Yeah. And another upset. And she was just like Mikey, the favorite to win that bracket. And
absolutely.
Put to sleep. I mean, not put to sleep, but put away in the first round. Crazy. Moving on. Let's move on to the Rotolo brothers. Man, is there anybody that could stop these kids?
I don't know.
They're like 18, 19 years old, just kind of like come from the same, come from Atos under Galvao. And bro, these guys are amazing, man. These guys are incredible. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think all their fights they won by submission.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. So those guys know how to finish. Oh, there was Darce chokes up in there. I know there was one. The nasty one I saw at the end was when he went for the scissor, and he landed on his leg, and that was bad. It's funny because I was watching it, and I just started cringing and kind of like saying, oh my God, it's horrible. And my wife was like, what, man, what just happened? And I was like, the way the guy just landed on his leg. And even Cade looked like he was freaked out, man. He was apologizing immediately. But it puts him in the win. It gives him the win and puts him in that finals against Souza. So, so the Rotolo brothers, man, these guys are amazing. And another. It's funny, like how can you say another up and coming when they've been competing against black belts? I feel like forever.
Yeah,
right.
They've been on the scene for a while.
Yeah, you have Ty, who is a ADCC vet, placed fourth, really, I think he was 16, 17 years old. So, like, you can't even say, these guys are up and coming, man. These guys have been beasting for a long time. I'm sure they're going to be getting their black belts very soon. They're probably just waiting. Yeah. I think they just got their brown belts not too long ago.
Yeah.
Probably waiting for that 1 year mark. But they're black belts. Like there's no doubt these guys should, they're at a black belt level. I'm excited to see what these guys do at the black belt level in IBJJF. I can't even say the black belt level because they are already competing in that. But IBJJF, kind of to see how that goes, But
I mean,
that'll be amazing.
The old saying, like, the future is now. The future is here, but like it's here. Like the Rotolo brothers, Roberto Jimenez, Cole Abate, Mika Galvao. Like, I mean, this is the future of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm excited because I feel like these are very, very good representations of the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Very sportsmanlike, strong work ethic. They put in the work. They respect their opponents. Things that martial arts is all about. They live by that code, and I'm really excited to see, to watch their growth in the sport, as they get older and mature.
Yeah, and it's crazy. A lot of these competitors were young, man. I think if you look at Flow Grappling, they have some stats on the competitors, and I think the average age was about 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome, man. I mean, you got a lot of these up and coming guys. Yeah, the age limit of the finalists, 22 years old. The average age of the competitor is 25. Mika's the youngest for 17. He's the youngest finalist. Sorry, he's not the youngest competitor. He's the youngest finalist, 17. And then you got Spriggs at 30 as the oldest competitor, oldest finalist. So so most submissions of the day, you got the Rotolo brothers 2 for 2, man. They got both brothers sunk in submissions on both of their matches on their way to the finals, each in their own category. So shout out to them. And I definitely want to say, shout out to Josh Cisneros who had that injury. Hope he's all right. He looked like he got up, shook it off, and started walking. But obviously, with the adrenaline pumping, I mean, you don't know what's going on. Hopefully he gets that thing checked out, but it's not too serious. So he can come back because that dude is an exciting fighter as well. All right, so go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, and I think he was already coming back from a knee injury. So
Right,
maybe,
right. I'm wondering if it was the same knee, man.
Yeah, I wonder too.
All right, let's move on. We mentioned a pair of the ladies, but one that really stands out is Grace Gunham, Gundrum, Grace Gundrum. And I've seen her. I don't know if I'm not really too much. I don't follow her too much, but obviously she's been competing on these shows for a while. Gordon mentioned that she was on EBI a couple times, and
Yep.
and I've seen some of her training videos when she was with uh, what's his name, John Jacques Machado.
Yeah. Yes.
When
Yes.
he when he visited their gym and he kind of trained
That
with her.
role.
I think he rolled with her for like 10
Yep.
minutes or something like that. And we put her in some bad spots, but she was able to recover. And she's good. I mean, she's good and real scary. Has this? We were talking about this backstage. Like, has this kind of freaky presence, right? Like this blank stare. Straight up looking like a anime type of thing. And you mentioned if she had long hair, she looked like the girl from The Ring. But yeah, man. But she's awesome. She's really good. She won her semifinals match against Jessica Khan, who's awesome as well, with a twister, no less. Twister, which is bugged out because you don't really see that much. I mean, it's very rare to kind of see that, but that's a really, really bad position where your spine is getting, misaligned, put in 2 directions, actually 3 directions, and and she tapped to that, made it to she's now in the finals against Mesa Bastos, right? So yeah, man, Grace, man, what do you think about Grace?
Um, she's another one, a person of very few words. I mean, her
All business.
jujitsu is this. Yeah, exactly. I even think her like social media presence is very
Very late,
limited.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, she is, she's a real deal. And also too, like you said, started them young. Like even with like Jessica Khan, like I think like because I follow her on Instagram, I believe she started when she was like what 5, 6 years old
Yeah,
as well.
she just got her black belt not too long ago, and she's like
Exactly.
18,
She's
like
only
19
19.
years
Yeah.
old. Yeah,
So
crazy,
like the
bro.
future also is bright. I mean, even Kendall Rusing, I think she started very young as well. I think she started
Hmm.
with wrestling first and then jujitsu, I think around like 12. But also
Yeah,
too, like they've been training at a very, very young age. Now it's not to say like, oh, start them young and they'll be world champions. No, it's just,
right,
you
right,
know,
right,
it's good for like the self-confidence, self-defense aspect and things like that, and it's
right,
always,
right.
good to have, a way to defend yourself,
Yeah,
So I think
it, I agree with you. With it's the goal is not to get not to have them become world champions. If they go down that path and they become professional athletes, absolutely. I mean, that's awesome. Support them. If that's what they want. If that's what they want. But the crazy. I mean, for me, the thing that stands out the most as a father, as an instructor, is that these kids can handle themselves against adults, and not just any adult, against adults with jujitsu skills,
yeah.
right? So now, could you imagine if you have a kid who's been training since he was 4, he's now 13, 14, 15 years old, 16 years old, has had 5 to 10 years of jujitsu training, finds himself in a situation against an adult who is bigger, could potentially overpower him. How much effectiveness could that young 16, 13, 14, 15-year old have against that person? Significant amount.
Yeah.
significant. I mean, I feel sorry for the dude who tries something, right? You know, because you can see. I mean, the proof is in the pudding in these matches, right? You can see these young kids who have these skills, been training, and now they're going against other higher level black belts, and they're handling their own, and or even winning and winning.
Hmm.
So that goes to tell you how effective jiu-jitsu is. So yeah, I mean, this is just another a proof that if you start your kids on jiu-jitsu, especially when they're young, by the time they reach teenage years, they're going to be very, very confident in their abilities to defend themselves. So that's the the spiel for the parents. If you're wondering, hey, is this going to work for my kid? Man, just watch Cole. I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy. All right, so yeah, so now you have the finals matches. So definitely looking forward to watching, how this thing wraps up. But now let's move on to the UFC recap. All right, and this is going to lead into our discussion. I know we put on the flyer that we are going to talk about dealing with
Overcoming
adversity,
adversity.
dealing with adversity. But we're going to get there. I mean, all of this is like leading up to that. So you got UFC recap real quick, and there's really four fights that I want to talk about. There was a lot of knockouts. I mean, a lot of TKOs and stuff like that. Not many submissions, and the submissions that happened, I think, were there in the early prelims. So I didn't really get a chance to watch those. But there were four fights that I really wanted to talk about, which is mention them real quick. And the first one that I want to talk about was Marlon Moraes and Merhab. I can't even
Right.
pronounce his last name. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
but that was crazy. Did you see that?
I did
Man,
actually. Yep. That
bro.
was a crazy fight. I thought, you know, if the referee would have stopped it, I wouldn't have had no problem with it because I mean, I didn't even think Marab knew where he was. Like he was just getting, word, and Marlon Moraes, a great fighter, absolutely. I probably would have done the same. Like if I saw Marab hurt like that, I would have like unloaded to try to like finish him. So like I'm sure he's probably like frustrated, like, dag, like the ref could have he should, or he could have stopped it, but he didn't. It allowed Marab to recover, and I mean, Marab just did what Marab does and just
Wow.
maul him.
Yeah, I thought he had it in the bag, bro. I thought he had it in the bag. But he recovered and put it on him bad. But that was, if you haven't watched that fight, that's probably one of the most exciting fights of the night. That back and forth exchange, both of them, almost knocking each other at one point, and then obviously Merab getting the
The
finish.
finish.
Yeah, so that was a crazy one. All right, let's move on, man, because we run out of time and we still got to get to the topic. Is let's go. Let's talk about a little bit about Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler. What are your thoughts about that?
um, Nick Diaz, like one of my favorite fighters. Like one of the reasons, like I became like a fan of the UFC, even though I watched before, but it was like always fun to watch them, because they went against the grain. Um, I- it pains me to say this, but I hope he doesn't fight again. It was really bad. I mean, like his body, he looked like me right now. If I was to take off my shirt, we'd have the same body type. Like it was bad. I'm like, I just didn't want to see. I just don't want to see it anymore. Like we had an interesting discussion last night where you said that maybe he's exhausting his contractual obligation, and maybe
Maybe.
that is because I mean he's trying to say like why was this fight even made? Jake Shields just came out saying that like this fight was forced upon him, like
Mm.
they didn't care about his health and things like that. So, I mean, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but, honestly, 6 years is a long time. I think, you got your match, I prefer, you don't come back anymore after that
Yeah,
performance.
yeah. I mean, when they announced the fight, obviously, as a fan, you're excited. Oh wow, with Diaz brothers coming out to fight, especially Nick, who's been out for a very long time. And you see the highlights leading up to the fight, and you see him in the best shape of his life. And he's doing his thing. Um, but then I saw him at the weigh-ins. I was like, wait, something doesn't look right. I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, he doesn't look like his normal self. He walked in with just like one guy in his camp. I don't. They were talking about that, and then when he came out, he always has like that nonchalant, like I don't care attitude. And but he was scrapping. I mean, not for nothing. I mean, he was still throwing. He was still scrapping. He was catching Lawler a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, but Lawler landed, that nice right hook, put him on his knee, caught him with another one, and then he went down. And after that, I just don't think he was like, you know what? Why am I here? Like that's it.
Mhm.
Like I'm good. I made it. I signed the contract. I'm here. Made it. Gave these fans a show for a couple rounds, and then let me call it quits. Because it's rare. Like we were like, did he just quit? Like
Yeah.
why? I mean,
Hmm.
he didn't seem hurt. I honestly I thought he was his knee because he,
I
he
thought
seemed like
so
to grab
too.
his leg at some
Hmm.
point, and he did have like a lump on his calf, on his shin, and I'm like, okay, maybe from the leg kicks, he hurt his knee, but he got up, and at the end of the day, he's it seemed like he didn't really want to be there, and even from his comments, commentary, his post fight commentary with
With
what's his
DC.
face with DC, yeah, um, talked about how like I don't even know how this fight got put together, but that kind of like made me think like, wait, you you didn't want to be fighting, and from the way he was in shape, his physical appearance seemed to like that he wasn't, and he was talking about like he came ready, he was in shape and I wasn't. I was like, but you knew there was a fight coming. It's not. I was making the joke, yeah, last night. I was like, the way the conversation came about after we saw him was like, hey Nick, you want to fight? Yeah, sure. When? Tonight? Okay. And that's kind of like how it happened, right? It's like, you want to fight tonight? Go ahead, just jump in there. But yeah, man, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a huge Diaz brothers fan. I love the way they fight, man. They got endless heart. They said, I remember reading somewhere that the Diaz brothers, they don't lose, they just run out of time. They just run out of time because they'll if these fights were like
Nate for
10 to
sure.
15, yeah, if you went 10
I
to
guess Leon
15,
Edwards.
they probably end up having a higher win percentage. But anyways, I mean, at the end of the day, hats off to Nick, man. He's amazing. Dude is a fan favorite. I mean, you heard it in the crowd. Everybody was, you know, cheering him on from the beginning to the end. So, but I do hope, like, you know what, he hangs it up, man. Like, unless he has, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight again as long as he has that fire. Like, as long as he comes in and is ready to fight. But I don't think he seems not to have that desire. So
Mhm.
man, just I put it up, man. Hang him up. I don't think you really need the money. I mean, he has other successful side businesses too.
His
So
gym.
yeah, this gym and his CBD business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it is what
And
it
the
is,
Diaz
man.
name in combat sports, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I
everybody
mean,
wanted to go train with them.
seriously, as a cementing your legacy. I mean, it's done. I mean, you dude, like everybody loves you, and you haven't fought in 6 years. Like, wow, like how much if that doesn't prove that you are a favorite in the hearts of the average fight fan, but I don't know what else.
And he probably made the most out of the whole card.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably. All right, two more. This one is Shevchenko, Valentina Shevchenko. Can anyone beat her?
My I have a question. What do you do with her? Because I feel like, that she is trending towards that Mighty Mouse territory where
Mm,
the UFC is not going to be able to make any money off of her. Because
yeah,
if you put her against anybody, do we really think that that person has a chance against her at that weight at 125? You can't make her a headliner of a pay-per-view because nobody's going to watch, nobody's going to buy it. I feel like, and it shows like every time she's on the card, probably the co-main event, or even this one, which I thought if you took that Nick Diaz fight out, it probably wouldn't sell as much.
mm,
Granted, Volkanovski and Ortega, that was a good fight, and they did it. They tried to do a good job, selling, whatever beef, and I put that in quote, from
yeah,
like the Ultimate Fighter and stuff like that. But I felt like it was a necessary for the UFC with those two fights probably wouldn't sell as much pay-per-views that they had to throw that DS fight in there in order for it to create a type of buzz.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, who do you put in front of her? Because you look at if I'm looking at the top 10 in that division, in the 125 division, and some of these ladies lost last night. You got Lauren Murphy. Obviously, she beat her
hmm
in the championship fight. You got Cynthia
Calvillo,
Calvillo, who lost last night
yep,
against Jessica on Andrade,
Andrade,
and
who she
yeah,
already beat.
yeah, who she already beat. And you have Roxanne Modafferi, who lost last
Modafferi.
night.
Yep.
She lost last night.
Yeah,
And
I'm
the
kind
only
of nervous. She might. I think she might get cut
yeah,
from
yeah.
the UFC. Yeah, I
And
like her. You know,
so the only ones you have really at number two is Chukagian,
she already
uh,
beat.
who she already beat. You have Jennifer Maya,
She already
uh,
beat.
Joanne Calderwood,
They haven't fought yet.
Jessica I, who I believe she
She
already
already.
beat too.
Yeah, she
And
knocked
then
her head. Yep.
yep, and then at number 10 you have Alexa Grasso, who is great, is good,
Yeah,
but I don't think
but
she's at a Valentina Shevchenko level. I would hate
yeah,
to see that fight. I would hate to see
y-
that.
yeah. Not right now. You know, like
Not right now.
maybe like a couple more fights. Yeah, to build her up. But I just don't think
And that's it,
that
man.
she's ready.
And and then and the rest of the division, there's nobody that could stand with her, man. And honestly, I think the next fight for her would probably fight Andrade again, or see what's up with yeah. I mean, I don't know. Nunes is just too big, man. And
Yeah. I,
but Andrade maybe. But you're
yeah, I
right,
guess.
Mighty
But it's
Mouse.
already.
We're back at the Mighty Mouse era, man. Like,
Yeah,
but anyway,
and
but
it's
to kind of go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
and at the same weight too. 125.
125.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, right? 125.
Yeah.
But yeah, but not to take away from her. This speaks about her dominance, right? She's just amazing,
Hmm.
everywhere. I mean, her speed, her accuracy, her combinations were on point last night. Her takedowns, I mean, her she was ducking under and taking down,
Hmm.
was crazy. And she fights like she fights like she's going after the belt,
Yep.
right? She fights like she's hungry and she wants to win this belt, rather than usually you'll see the champion kind of more laid back. I mean, she's always hungry, and the thing about her is that she it's not just her as a fighter, as a person, man. I respect her so much, man. It's like she's probably out of the females that fight in the UFC, probably my top three, maybe even
Yeah.
number one, honestly, because as a fighter she's just amazing. And then the thing that blew me away last night, if you saw her post fight interview with DC, was the fact that she like basically greeted and spoke four languages.
Yeah.
Was mind blowing. She speaks English, she speaks her native tongue, she speaks Spanish, which for me was like, man, and she speaks it beautifully. And I think she was speaking either Thai last night too,
Yep.
kind of shouting out her Thai coaches and stuff like that. So you mean she's a fan favorite, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, man. Who do you put against her? Um, that's always unfortunate, but I'm hoping there's somebody that they can think about that'll challenge her in a bit, and see if you could put her in some deep waters and see really what she's made of.
Maybe Rose if she decides to move up to 125. But
Nah, man.
I feel like she's too small for that
She's too
division.
too small, and
Yeah.
Valentina's too strong, man. Just too strong.
Exactly. Yep.
Her kicks were just scary, But anyway, all right. Last one. T City.
Ooh.
T City, and this is where we're talking. We'll talk about the next 15 minutes about dealing with adversity. T City dealing with adversity last night. Wow. Um, I was upset, man. I was sending you messages last night, like, man, I was heated. I was heated that he didn't finish that fight. I
Yeah.
I respect Volkanovski as as a fighter and stuff. Obviously, I respect anybody who's in the UFC, because they've dedicated their lives to being there. Um, but I really wanted Ortega to win last night, man,
Yep.
and he had it in the back twice, if not three times, with the one with the mounted guillotine,
Guillotine. Yep.
the transition to the
The triangle.
a triangle to the darts. He had a
Hmm.
darts at some point. But that triangle, man, and I'm like, man, if you would have just done X, Y, and Z, he could have finished it. But and then after that, he kind of found himself in some really bad spots, really heavy ground and pound, dealing with adversity. But you know what? He didn't give up.
Hmm.
He didn't give up. He dealt with that adversity, was popped up. I don't know how he made it uh, um, out of his corner when the doctors were checking him, when Herb Dean was checking on him. I didn't really know, because he didn't seem like he was responsive. Like he was looking
Yeah.
around, and you're like, no, look over here, and he was like, I don't know what he was trying to look at. I don't know, maybe he couldn't see, and he was just trying to see where the sound was coming from. Um, but he
Yeah.
passed the vision test that they give him, how many fingers or whatever. and then he went out there. Man, what do
Yeah,
you think about that, bro?
well, Volkanovski, in his post-fight interview, was kind of upset because he was like, they would asking him questions, and he got all of them wrong. So he was like, why was the fight even allowed to even continue after that? They told him to look one way, he looked the other way. How many fingers? He got it wrong, but they allowed it to continue. But to his credit, I mean, yeah, I mean, he came back, and even in that fifth round, I mean, he looked like, towards the end, like Volkanovski looked like he gassed. And,
Man,
I think if there was maybe like another minute or two, maybe it might have been like like, he might be in some real trouble because he was catching him with some clean shots at the end of at that fight. But anybody else,
yeah,
like, like, uh, even like with that third, submission attempt, once the person pop out, any normal person probably would have gave up at that point. Like, okay, that was my last gasp attempt. He's ground and pounding me. Like, do something, make a signal to the ref to, like, finish it. But
yeah.
to his credit, he's, both of them are not my cup of tea. You know, I'm not the biggest fans of either, but they definitely earned my respect last night for
Oh, for
sure.
sure, for
Hmm.
sure. And talking a little bit about Ortega, couple things is, you're going against a high level MMA fighter, but you saw him apply a lot of the basic self defense techniques that you would learn in jiu-jitsu, and it helped him, in my opinion, helped him deal with some of that adversity that he was facing. I mean, you saw him using his knees to push off his opponent, trying to create some space.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going against a skilled striker, so it's much different than if you were using these particular techniques against a non-trained assailant, right? But he used them to try to create space, to move, to get his back off the cage, and try to find openings for him to hit his submissions. So anybody who says, oh, he was just getting ground and pounded, I mean, he was covering up a lot of them. And honestly, I'm kind of split. Like, I'm glad that Dean didn't stop it, because he was defending himself. He was moving. He wasn't like not responsive, but he did catch a lot of damage, unfortunately. But you got Volkanovski, who is a skilled striker. But you saw him put himself in some threatening positions. Obviously, he, Brian did attack off his back, put him in some really bad positions to show the power of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It didn't finish, it didn't finish him, but it was very close to. But it goes to show you how efficient jiu-jitsu is in a potential fight, right? And dealing with that adversity, being confident with your jiu-jitsu skills, him resorting back to what he's best, what he does best, and yeah, man, almost capitalizing on that. So it really goes to show you, number one, the heart that he has, that champion level heart, and depending on and really relying on his jiu-jitsu to really deal with some of those challenges that he was facing in there. So yeah, we got about 7 minutes, and now we're really talk about the topic itself, kind of going through all of that and dealing with adversity, right? So right here, we wanted to talk about a little bit about dealing. How do you deal with adversity? And for me, obviously, most of us who train jiu-jitsu will probably never be in that level of adversity, kind of getting ground and pounded by a skilled world champion. But you will find adversity when you're training jiu-jitsu, whether it's you're rolling and you get an accidental eye poke, or you get a knee to your nose, right? Or you're dealing with some type of pain in your role, because of or weight. You're going against a heavier opponent. Um, how do you deal with those things? How do you train your mind to be able to be resilient in those moments so that you can overcome that and either win your match, or at least survive, like being able to survive the situation, and being able to live to fight another day, right? So
Hmm.
I think it's really important that as you train, that you give yourself the opportunity to not just train your skills, but also train your mind to be able to face those situations. And what I mean by that is accepting those situations and not backing out of it. So
Yeah.
a couple of things that I dislike, and I tell my students all the time, is like, you'll see these guys they're caught in a submission, but it's not really deep, right? Because I'm an advocate that if it's deep, it hurts, tap. no problem. Reset, keep going. But you also have to be able to build a certain level of tolerance, because how do you know when to tap if you haven't really found that limit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm gonna kind of give it a little bit of time until I'm like, you know what? Yep, I can't get out of this. Tap, I'm done. Some people kind of let go real quick. As soon as they're mounted, oh, tap, 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 I'm gone. Maybe in the beginning, because you're not there, you don't, you're not familiar with the situation, you're not familiar with the positioning, and that is overwhelming. Like look at Hoist Gracie with Art, was it Jimmerman? I think his name was.
Mm-hmm.
He got mounted, and Hoist didn't punch him in the face or nothing. He was just, he was just basically put in that mounted position and freaked out and tapped from the mount. I know it happens. It happens in potentially in the beginning of your journey, but as you develop, as you're learning, as you're going in your journey, to give yourself an opportunity to face those adversities. You have accidental eye pokes. You might get caught in the face with a knee. Um, Being able to kind of just brush it off and keep on rolling, right? And it'll help develop your resiliency in those situations, especially when you need it. Especially like if you find yourself in a situation in the street, you're not going to have a chance to tap and reset, right?
Reset.
You
Yep.
have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to deal with those things so that you can come out on top, right? So that's one of the things for me is I always tell my students, hey, if you get caught in a bad position, just give yourself the chance until you know that, you know what, I can't get out of this, and that way you learn your limit, man. I know nobody wants to get eye poked. I know nobody wants to get caught in the nose. Everybody wants to still look like a GQ model. Um, Talking about you, Fernando. But you got to give yourself the chance, man. You got to give yourself, because how would you know? Um, and that's really it. And same thing with when it comes to dealing with other adversities, like an injury, for
Mm-hmm.
example. That setback, and maybe not allowing you to want to come back because of it. Like, oh man, everybody's moving forward, and I'm kind of being left behind. We mentioned it before. There's ways for you to continue to grow, because jujitsu is it's more than just physical. It's really developing
Mental.
your
Yep.
thinking, mental,
Yep.
right, emotionally, and you can still learn without having to actually train it or roll, right? I mean, you can still attend the class, watch the technique and process that mentally, continue to develop your or increase your mental strength. Obviously, the reflexes and the twitching, that muscle reflex might not be there because you're not drilling it, but you can still gain that information, and build that database so that when you do come back, you have some things that you want to work on. So now you kind of catch your body up to that mind, your mental abilities. So it's in dealing with adversity that way. If you have an injury, we were talking about dealing with egos. You know, Man, egos is a big thing, and and I've told this before, like having students who give up on themselves, on jujitsu, because they can't deal with somebody beating them up, you know, and you
Exactly.
have to have that a certain mindset. You kind of have to give up who you are so that you can discover who you really are. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to let
Absolutely right.
go. Yeah, you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to let go who you are as a person now. Your tough guy mindset, nobody can beat me. Humble yourself a little bit so that you could really discover who you truly are, or you can ascend to somebody who is better than the person you are today, just by dealing with some of these adversities, and giving yourself the opportunity. Man, I know ego's a big thing. Ego really stops people from moving forward, but
That
when you're
almost stopped
capable,
me. Mm-hmm.
yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times where I've kind of wanted to quit just because I feel like I wasn't progressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or dealing with one particular individual. I'm like, yo, man, I can't get past this guy. So you know what? Forget it. Having a negative mindset. But yeah, man, this is all part of the just dealing with this adversity. Um, yeah, and as I was just mentioning right now, like even plateauing,
Mm-hmm.
you get to a point where you're like, I'm not I'm not moving. I'm kind of hitting the same thing over and over again. What's my next step? And you're not discovering that. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that? Giving yourself an opportunity to sit back, and that's why we mentioned this before, is taking a break really helps kind of reset the gears, kind of reset the energy and the desire and the motivation. So when you do come back, you
Yeah.
feel energized, and you kind of handle it a different way. You kind of slow things down and not really get caught up in that particular moment. So to giving yourself a break. If you feel like you're plateauing, give yourself a break, reassess where you're at, maybe reassess what you're doing, and break those norms, right? Break that trend that you're following, and try something new. Really putting yourself back in that white belt mindset,
Yeah.
um, to kind of like let go of what your A game is and try to find something else that you can add to your A game. You know. So, but yeah, I think all of these, and we'll do like a follow up session, because I know we were so excited about this weekend. We wanted to talk a lot about the highlights, man, and but we'll do a part two of dealing with adversity. But I felt like T City's fight last night was a great example of dealing with adversity,
Yeah.
not just from a technical perspective, but from a mental perspective, right? You know, I think at some point he was like, he knew that, you know what, I might not get this, but I'm gonna go out there and at least put it all out there, and walk out with my head up high, right?
Hmm.
You know, he, in his post fight interview, you kind of I had a lot more respect for him, to say, you man, I have the heart of a Mexican, coming out there. um but yeah, man, that's a perfect example of dealing with that adversity that we wanted to talk about a little bit today, and we'll go into it a little bit more, and maybe another show, is not giving up on yourself, man. Not
Hmm.
giving up on yourself, trusting, your abilities, and not succumbing to some threats. I mean, most people probably would have given up, man. Honestly, most
Yeah.
people probably would have given up. T City kept on trying to find ways out, ways, not just ways to get out, but ways to win,
Yep.
right? And that really speaks volumes of his skill, but more so his mental training, man. And I really think that comes from jujitsu, because I don't
Yep.
think any other martial art is gonna bring you to those limits and back, right? And that's what he showcased last night. So hats off to T City, and I hope you heal up, come back stronger. I know you will, and I really hope that he gets in line for another title fight eventually, because he's
Yeah.
young. He's young, and he's got a lot of skill, man. A lot of skill, and I think he's only gonna get better. So yeah, man. But that's it, man. At dealing with adversity. Any thoughts, Fernando?
Any thoughts? Yeah. So with Brian T. City Ortega, like I think dealing with adversity, but even though he didn't win, I felt like he overcame adversity. Because like you said, like the average Joe, probably would have quit in that situation after that last gas. You know, I guess guillotine that could have switched to a Darce. You know, it would have been over after that once they got out. But he fought to the very end. And it's a good example for anybody in the game. Also, for me as well, because you know even though we do this podcast, we're still human. We're not perfect. I mean, I go through my days where I'm like, man, I just don't want to do this,
Mm,
or I'm in a bad position, and I've done it too, like where I'm going to rolling against a guy that's significantly heavier than me that has like top pressure, I can't get out, so I just tap and reset. But they didn't do nothing. And hearing you right now, made me realize that maybe I'm doing a disservice to my training partner because, instead of them trying to work their attacks, I just quit basically
mm.
and just did a reset. So, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I
um,
mean, you got to give yourself a chance, man. You got to
mhm,
give yourself a chance, and anybody who's listening to this, or will listen to this, and it's the same advice I give, all my students, and what I do myself. It's not to have like it's not about having a about ego and like I'm not gonna give up, but you have to really just trying to find how far you can go, and find your limits. So I think it's just a matter of not giving up on yourself and trying to find, and you'll see that you'll last a little longer than what you normally think, right? And that's really,
mhm,
and for me, it's always like, how do I develop my jujitsu, not just for the class, not for the roles, not for a competition, but for when it really counts, which is that potential, um, that possibility of having to use it in a real situation, right? And having to deal with those adversities when they present themselves, like maybe multiple attackers, God forbid that ever happens, multiple attackers or with a weapon, or you get put in a position where you do get punched, and like, okay, now how do you react? um those will happen in a role. I mean, it'll happen in a role when you're
Mm-hmm.
training in class. You might get caught, and most people will probably, oh, whoa, whoa, stop, man, let me shake it off. I personally say, yo, roll through it. I remember one time I was rolling with Diego. He came out, and I went for a takedown for a double leg, and he sprawled. But when he sprawled, he brought his hands up. Thumb went right in my eye. Man, it was so bad. I saw a huge bright light, but I didn't stop. Like I just closed the eye, just kept on rolling, and I rolled basically blindfolded, like without seeing, and until time went off. And because at that moment I told myself I can stop and say, oh man, let me try to to rub it and trying to let me try to recover. But something inside of me is like, you know what, I need to keep on going to discover who I am during these difficult times. And yeah, I made it through. I mean, we made it through the round, and then after that we kind of you reset, brushed it off, and started blinking, whatever. But it's what I'm talking about. um One thing that I really hate, and one thing I dislike, and I know we're out of time, but one thing that um shouldn't happen is you start coaching during your time of adversity, especially when you're going against a lower belt. You're maybe a blue belt, purple belt, and you get put in a bad spot with a white belt. And instead of tapping, you start giving advice like, oh, yeah, yeah, it's good. Okay, you know what? Just adjust it right here. And oh, there it is. And then you kind of, bro, don't do that. Acknowledge the fact that you got caught, you got put in a bad position, you got caught. And if you want to give him some advice, give it after, but you try to get out of it. You're going to get caught by lower belts. You're going to get caught by people you don't expect. um don't try to take away from that by starting to coach and stuff like that. That's one of the things that one of my pet peeves in jiu-jitsu, man, is like seeing that happen. I'm like, bro, just keep on rolling.
My bad, yeah.
Give
I mean, her name. I'm sorry. I'll
give him
stop next time. Yeah.
give him advice. Give him advice after the roll. Um, but yeah, man. But that's it, man. And we'll go into a little bit more detail, probably in part two. But yeah, man. That's it, man. I think that's it. We'll leave it like this today. Any final words, Fernando?
Yeah. Shout outs to all the competitors this weekend. I mean, it was a great weekend of jujitsu and fights. Also, take our advice. Um, like you said, yeah, never give up on yourself. But if you're in a bad position, like a heel hook or whatever, please tap
No time.
because you
Yeah,
will blow out your knee.
yeah,
Don't try to be a superhero. Take our advice. Try. But be smart. That's one thing. Because obviously we want you to continue to roll and stuff like that. But yeah, you just be smart, know your body. And tap if you need to. But yeah, once again, thanks a lot. I've had a blast talking about things that I love. So this was fun.
yeah. Absolutely, man. And again, for us, for me, this is just another form of therapy. Being able to just be able to hang out, talk about what we enjoy, jujitsu and MMA. And today we kind of like we strayed away from the norm where we just typically talk about a topic, kind of serious topic, back and forth, give advice and stuff like that. Today I kind of we wanted to have fun a little bit and talk about some of these highlights, just because there was so much action going on. And wanted to give a shout out to all of these fighters who are putting it out there, and for our entertainment, really, right? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
for their benefit, but our entertainment as well. And they put up a heck of a show between Fight to Win and the UFC card last night. So shout out to all of those guys who are really putting in that work, and motivating me to get back on the mats. And so yeah, man. So next week's another week, training week. Hopefully you get some classes in. I'm hoping to kind of get up with you, Fernando, and see if we can
Yep.
go train with you at some point. But yeah, definitely train smart. And as what Fernando said, it's not about being a meathead or anything like that, but finding your own limitations. But if you find like you're in a bad situation, obviously health is first. So and as we always end every class, every session, training hard and training smart. That's really what we advise. But before that, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you comment. We're trying to grow. We want to grow. We want to continue offering good stuff, but we need your help. We need your help. We want you to let us know how we're doing, what we're doing, the positive, the negative, the good and the bad, the ugly, whatever it is. However we're doing, please let us know. Give us feedback. Like our fan page
Facebook.
on
Yep.
Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. We're putting out really good content.
We got great
And
guests coming up. So
yeah,
we
we
got
have a
some
great
real
guest coming up.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll be announced very
That's a
later on this week.
tease. So
Yeah,
keep tuning in.
yep. And our first non-LUL guest, world champion black belt, who will be on our show next Sunday for sure. And then the following Sunday, we have another high-level Hoist Gracie black belt with us to share with us a little bit about jiu-jitsu, BJJ for self-defense part 2. So we have a good lineup coming up. So do that, please. Follow us, like us, share our stuff. Support us, support our sponsor, Rolosophy. We didn't get a chance to show the video today, but follow them. They have some cool stuff coming out. We're working on in the back scene, in the behind the scenes on that. So with that said, train hard, train smart. We see each other next Sunday.
And most importantly, train.
Train.